Brandon Swanson was born on January the 30th, 1989 in Marshall, Minnesota, graduating from his local high school in 2007. He went on to study wind turbines for a year at the Minnesota West Community and Technical College, but sadly, this is where this tragic story begins. On May the 13th, 2008, Brandon's classes ended, so he spent the evening in Canby with some friends celebrating the end of the year. He attended 2 parties, and although he consumed some alcohol, he was described as showing no visible signs of being intoxicated. So much so, he even left Canby to drive the 30-mile journey home just before midnight. But weirdly, instead of the more direct route of taking Minnesota State Highway 68, he cut through rural farming roads instead. Some believed to possibly avoid the police as he had been drinking. A little before 2 a.m, Brandon made a call to his parents claiming that he had accidentally driven his Chevrolet Lumina off the road and into a ditch, and he was having trouble getting it back out. Now, Brandon advised that he wasn't actually injured, but he just needed his parents, Brian and Annette, to come and pick him up, which led to them leaving in their pickup truck. They drove to the area where they thought he may have been, but sadly, he was nowhere to be seen. During all of this, they kept him on the phone, though sometimes the call would get disconnected, so they would immediately ring him straight back. He would stay by his car, flashing his lights and phone, as would the others, in an attempt to find each other, but confusingly, neither could spot the other person. Eventually, Brandon decided to abandon the car completely and walk towards the only light he could see, leading his parents to believe that he was actually near Lind, a small city just 7 miles southwest of Marshall. His father instructed him to go to a parking lot of a bar and to wait there for him. During the drive and walk, they still remained on the phone, with Brandon admitting that he was cutting through fields and climbing over fences to save himself some time. At around 2:30, they had been trying to find Brandon for 47 minutes, which is when the call abruptly ended, after they heard him shout, "Oh shit," and the call then fell completely silent. The parents, understandably alarmed, frantically tried to call him back immediately, hoping that if he had just dropped his phone, he would then see it light up in the darkness. But the call went unanswered. Brandon Swanson was never seen or heard from again. Brandon had brown hair with blue eyes, wore black wire-framed glasses and had pierced ears. He was legally blind in his left eye and also had a small scar above it. At the time of his disappearance, he was wearing a white shirt, a blue striped polo sweatshirt, baggy blue jeans, a black zip-up jacket with a hood and emblem on the back, a white Minnesota Twins baseball cap, white sneakers, a heavy sterling silver necklace, and 1 stud earring in each ear. But strangely, despite being legally blind and constantly suffering depth perception issues requiring glasses, he actually left them behind in his car for reasons that still remain a mystery. It wasn't until 6:30 a few hours later when he was finally reported missing to the police. However, they actually told his parents that it's not unusual for young men to be out all night on the last day of college classes, even stating that it was Brandon's right to go missing. Regardless, the search began later that morning, but there was no trace of him anywhere in town or outside the adjacent areas. They ended up tracking his phone records, which showed that Brandon actually made the call around the area of Taunton along State Highway 68, which was 25 miles away from Lind, where his parents thought he was. And this also perfectly aligned with his route from Canby back home to Marshall. This area was searched, finding Brandon's car abandoned in a ditch off a gravel road along Lincoln County, just north of Highway 68. But there were absolutely no tracks at the site to give any indication which direction he may have headed towards.
The vehicle simply looked like it was stuck in the ditch or partially in the ditch. There was nothing odd about it. If a person passed by, they would think it was just parked there or broken down and stuck.
But his phone was also pinged by a tower near Minneota, a small town near Highway 68. By May the 15th, it was concluded that the call was made within 5 miles of this tower, so the majority of the search was featured there. From this area, a grain elevator with a red light on top could be seen in Taunton, which may have been the light that Brandon had spotted and led him to believe that it was the city of Lind, convincing himself that it was well within walking distance, before they finally got a lead. The search spread from the ground to the air, including search dogs, who actually managed to pick up Brandon's scent and followed it for 3 miles to an abandoned farm by Yellow Medicine River, but his scent ended at the stream. Brandon's father stated that during the call he had mentioned passing some fences and even hearing some nearby water, leading to a theory that he was drunk and possibly slipped and drowned. On the morning of the disappearance, the water had been 10 feet deep, but had since decreased. Investigators searched the banks and surrounding areas thoroughly on horses, but the water itself wasn't searched. Although allegedly, one of the search dogs supposedly jumped into the water and then back out and continued to follow his scent along the gravel trail, suggesting that if he did fall in, he climbed back out, while other dogs followed the scent from one side of the river to the other.
However, most have completely discarded the possibility that Brandon was drunk, especially considering both parents have admitted that he showed absolutely no signs of being intoxicated throughout this entire phone call and always seemed fully aware of all of his surroundings. Furthermore, if he did in fact slip and fall into the river, there would have been some kind of audible evidence during the phone call. But strangely, to this day, his mobile phone and car keys have never been found.
However, it is worth noting that some farmers refused to allow the authorities or their canines to search their land due to planting and harvest season at the time, which adds to the complications in the case when Brandon's scent was actually picked up by the dogs on some nearby farm equipment, but the owner refused to let them search his property.
In at least a couple of circumstances, that problem is still in existence. They will not allow us on their property. We don't dispute the reason why. We try and work out a method that would make it acceptable, and we've not been able to come up with a working compromise.
The police did actually attempt to work alongside the emergency support services to try to gain access to search these properties, but it lies within them actually finding a probable cause, which was extremely difficult, and the more time went along, the more that scent had faded away.
The theory that he simply ran away has very scarcely been entertained, but foul play hasn't been officially ruled out. His own mother believes that someone was hiding at the river and attacked her son. Regardless of the outcome, Brandon's parents actually fought to make changes in the state law due to the extremely delayed police response and attitude towards the case. They wanted an investigation for a missing adult to begin just as immediately as that of a missing child. And this actually did go ahead, now named Brandon's Law, taking effect in July 2009. They believed although they couldn't rewind time to save their own son, they might be able to one day save someone else's.
In response, the police claimed that back then mobile phones were still relatively new, and it was tricky working around privacy laws regarding phone call history and records and tracking at the time.
As the searches continued, his parents always left their porch light on all night, hoping every day that he might one day come back to them. It wasn't until the autumn when search dogs actually found the scent of human remains and followed officers to an area just northwest of Porter which hadn't been searched previously, but nothing more was found. Mud Creek also became an area of interest, but was another dead end. By 2011, 122 square miles had been excessively searched, and absolutely no sign of Brandon Swanson had been found.
There were many unmarked cisterns in the area at the time, so it is a possibility that he may have simply fallen into one. Furthermore, on that night it was under 40 degrees Fahrenheit, so he may have died of hypothermia, especially if he fell into the river.
Over the years, searches have continued whenever harvesting season in the area allows. It wasn't until 2021 when the Yellow Medicine River actually dried up due to a drought, allowing law enforcement to finally carry out an excavation. And after all these years, Brandon Swanson was nowhere to be found. But as of 2023, more updates continue to come in, with the police claiming that they now have new information in the disappearance, supposedly surrounding someone that Brandon got into an argument with shortly before he disappeared. But this allegedly led to yet another dead end, leaving us and his family all hopelessly seeking answers.
Hello guys, this is Rob from Seeking Answers. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. If you do want to see more, please consider donating to Patreon or clicking that join button below to become a channel member. Unfortunately, YouTube's monetization doesn't really cater to the content that we make, so we do need all the help that we can get. I also realised that not everyone is able to give a monthly payment, so there is now a PayPal link in the description if anyone does want to donate a one-off payment. Doesn't matter the amount, any amount is appreciated. And if you do a one-off payment, you'll be able to request a case for us to cover, and it will really go towards helping the channel out and continuing to grow the community. Any amount is appreciated, and it will go towards keeping this channel alive and making more content, going on location more. You will get perks in exchange, and you will help really give this channel the boost it needs. Thank you for all of your support, and tune in next week for another video.